Everybody, and welcome back to another What's on the Shelf. And we're now on part 41, and which is on my small board game shelf. And in this one, we're going to be talking about Gloom, Love Letter, Roll for It, Patronize, Tenzi, and the 77 Ways to Tenzi, and Quiddler. So the first one is Gloom. I bought this one, geez, quite a long time ago, and it was just cool because all the cards were see through. And that was the first time I came across a game that had cards like that. And you start off with 4 or 5 characters. So you have like there's 4 different families that you can play with. And you have all your characters on the different families. And the goal of the game is to place cards on them that's going to have like horrible things that happens to them and it gives them negative points. So they were getting married and got stood up at the altar, or they ended up getting boils all over their bodies or different things like that. It's kind of varies on what can happen. And you put that on there and then it gives you negative points. And when you have one of your character that's nice and depressed and has a really deep negative points, you want to kill them off to complete them. First player to kill off all their family members triggers the end of the game, and then you kind of tally up all the scores, and whoever has the most negative point is the winner. Now, some cards will have positive things that happens, and you would play that on the other player's characters. So, yeah, okay, you stood up at the altar, but you went on a picnic and you made a new friend, so that made you happy, and then it covers some of the negative points, and it adds like plus 10. So, like, now they're not that deep of a negative point anymore, and it's like, well, it's not worth killing them off now. I got to depress them again. And it's just a funny theme to it, and it is kind of get a bit into like a storytelling aspect of it, right? Because you have a little blurb on each of your characters, and then you kind of blurb on what's happening, so you kind of make up the story as you go. It's a funny one. It's a neat one. It's one that we play more and more. Like the kids seem to enjoy this one. And it's one that oftenly gets played at Halloween, just kind of fits in that time of year anyways. But this one is called Gloom. Now the next game I have on here is Love Letter. Love Letter, we play this one so many times, and it's such a simple game. There's 16 cards, and you have a card in your hand, and you pick a card, and then you play a card. And the goal of the game is you try to eliminate all the other players, or to be at the end of the game, to be the player with the highest valued card. And each card will do different things. So if you play a guard, you get to try to guess what the other cards are. If you play a priest, you get to look at somebody else's card. If you have the baron, you compare. Like, you'll play a baron, then you compare the card in your hand and somebody else's card. Whoever has the highest card stays in the game. The other one's eliminated. Then you have the handmaid, and that one you'll play in front of you, and you're protected. Nobody can do an action against you until it's your turn again. And then you'll have the prince, and then you'll have the king and the countess and the princess, and they all do different things. So simple, such a great game. This is one we have played a lot, and it's always very well received. And that's Love Letter. Then on this shelf, I also have Roll for It. This might be my most played game ever. It's such a fun, simple game. You have these dice are tiny, but they're so nice, and they're like pearl finished dice. The one I have anyways. And then so you have these dice, you roll all 6 of your dice, and then you look at the number, and there'll be 3 cards in the middle. And then you can assign dice to the card that to match what it shows on that particular card. Now, you'll have some that have 3 dice, 2 dice, 4 dice, or up to 6 dice that you need to assign to it. And the higher value, like, or the higher number of dice needs to be associated to it, the higher value this card has. So you'll roll your dice and be like, okay, well, this one needs, like in this case, a 3 and a 1, and I rolled a 3, so I could assign the 3 to it, and then I keep the rest of the dice. So when my turn comes again, I would roll again, and I could, if I roll another 3, I can assign a 3. If you ever assign all the numbers on that card, then you take that card and it goes into your score. But everybody else is assigning dice to them as well. So be like, oh, okay, well, you already got 2 dice on that one. Do I want to try? Maybe I'll get to roll before they can, and then I get it. Now, the big valued card, the 15, like, you're going to need to have all of your dice assigned to that card. So you can't spread it because you could, well, I'm going to put 2 dice over here and 1 dice over there. But if it's a card that takes all 6 dice, then you got to send them all there. So it's harder to get, hence why they're worth more points. It's such a neat game. It's one, like I said, this is probably my most played game in my collection. It's simple, it's fun, and we've played this one loads. The next game I have is Patronize. Now, this one actually takes place in the world of Love Letter, but it doesn't play like Love Letter at all. You have character cards, and then you have fame cards, and then your character cards also have like little cubes that gets assigned to them, and it's kind of like a trick taking game without it being a trick taking game, and you're getting cubes. Honestly, I've never really played this one. I played it once as a solo game to learn the game, but this was a long time ago and I don't remember how the game plays now. But it was cool. I remember thinking it was cool, so I've kept it and I want to actually officially get it to the table. Then the next one I have is my tenzi, or so tenzi is a set of 4 different colored dice, and there's 10 dice per colored set. These are amazing, bright dice. They're really nice. And then you get this deck of card that's the 77 ways to tenzi that kind of so you'd flip it over and they'll have something on it that'll say kind of roll all even numbers. So you take your dice and you keep rolling until all of the dice you're assigned are even numbered on there, and then you can take the card and you flip the next card and they'll have a different task that you need to do. And so it's just like a fast paced dice rolling game. That's all you do. You're just rolling dice and kind of trying to gain the card. So cool. And like I said, these dice are just beautiful. I had found these two, and it was funny because I wanted tenzi dice. I couldn't find them for some reason, and I ended up finding those 2 sets at a like a local little gift shop thing that weren't even board games or anything. That just happened to have some tenzi dice, and I bought them. Now all of these tenzi dice right now are in my big bowl of dice. I have a candy dish full of dice, so they're in there. So when we want to play tenzi, we just got to pull them all out. But this is another fun dice checking game. Then the last game I have on this shelf is Quiddler, and it's like a word game. So it's almost like, I mean, we used to play Crazy Eight, but it was called 13 Down when you started with 13 cards and you went down to one. And this one is the opposite. Like you start with and you add more, if I'm remembering this right. Now, this is a word game, and my family's not huge on word games. It was really neat because you're kind of drawing cards, trying to create a word. Then when you get a word, you kind of gain that, and you go into the next round where you get more or less cards. And I can't remember which one it is. But like I said, my family's not big into word games, so they were like, eh. And I have lots of other word games that they're also on, so I'm keeping those because I like those better. So I ended up getting rid of this one, but it was a really neat little satisfying card game. And that's kind of what it looks like. So if you have some like that are into the words, it's neat. And then like there's points associated to each number and how common those letters are, and it was super cool. So if you want to follow me on Facebook, my Facebook group is Board Game Mama, and friends are playing all the games. I am also on Instagram as Board Game Mama. My podcast is the Board Game Specialist that I do with my friend Carla. We post every week, so be sure to give that a listen. And my YouTube channel is Board Game Mama, so be sure to stay tuned to see what else I have on the shelf. So bye, everybody.